Okay, so this is the first day back in the new year. It's January 2018, and I haven't done anything on the project for about, I guess, 3 months-ish. It's been too cold, and it's not particularly enjoyable in the garage when it's that cold. And also, it's been Christmas, so I've been doing other things. So I'm getting back into it today, and I've got a couple of things planned. But yeah, the idea generally is to put fluids into the car, oil generally, so gearbox oil, transfer case oil, and engine oil, and into the axles as well. So that's the idea for today. I've got a couple of small things which I'll show you later on to put together, and I'm going to try the cross member. So the cross member saga is that I'm using a Richard chassis, and I've got the removable cross member, and I've had about 3 or 4 of them so far. I think this is the 4th, and the connecting points for the gearbox mounts have never lined up, so I don't know if anybody else has ever had that issue. It'd be interesting to know. Maybe you could write in the comments, and yeah, hopefully we're getting there. I've lined this one up and it doesn't look quite right, but they're saying there's enough play or adjustment in the gearbox mounts to be able to help it fit, so we shall see how we get on. But if I show you around, this is where we are at the moment. So we have fuel tank in, and I've got some petrol. I've got 5 litres of petrol just to put in there, just to stop it from rusting, so hopefully that should be okay. I've got the small key which goes into this selector fork, and I got that through Barrett's Land Rover in Canterbury. What else have I got? Yeah, I've got the engine oil, got the gearbox oils, axle oils. I've also got a new replacement kit for the exhaust. That's a stainless steel exhaust which I got because the first one that Paddock Spares sent me was missing about 80% of the parts, which was a bit of a joke really. So I managed to get another one sent through, which is on the shelf over there. I've still got to tighten up this. I read on various forums that this is a 41mm socket, but it isn't actually. It's a 42mm, so I've got to get another one of those. I'm going to tighten that up to the Torx. I think it's about 150 from memory. I'll have to check that again, but something like that. Anyway, so otherwise I've got the fuel lines back on. I've got the carburetor on. I had to take the manifold off again because I'd forgotten to put the metal gaskets that come with the gasket set. I'd only put the fabric one on. So that had to come off again, but otherwise, yeah, the gearbox is the main thing for me really, because I've rebuilt that 3 times. So anybody considering a gearbox rebuild, it's not rocket science, but if you've never done it before, there's quite a lot of trial and error, and that was the same with me, so I've detailed that in other videos. Rear drive shaft is on. I'm pretty sure I've torqued up those bolts, have to check that. Fairy overdrive is on, needs oil, handbrake on. So that's where we are. All the brake lines are done. So this is the new cross member. There is the filter, the air filter, which I'm going to put the engine oil in there as well. I've got the specs written down somewhere, but I think it is either 0.6 of a litre or 500ml. I can't quite remember, but I've got it written down. So firstly, I'm going to put this one-shot grease compound into the swivel hubs, which I don't know if you can see it because it's pretty dark around here. No, maybe not. Anyway, it goes into a little opening just in here, and here is the bolt here, which closes it. So I'm going to put that in now. So I don't know what the general consensus on this is, but I'm putting some Ptfe tape around the sump plug thread. I've done it on quite a few of the threads on the car as well, just for a little bit extra sealant. So I'm going to put that in to the sump now and put the engine oil in. So yeah, just putting the oil into the oil bath of the air filter. So it takes 0.85 of a litre, and it's engine oil that you use inside. And actually, if you're not sure, you take it apart and there is a sign with 2 arrows saying exact oil level. So if in doubt, read what it says there. But yes, it's engine oil and 0.85 of a litre. So with 0.85 of a litre of engine oil in that oil sump for the air filter, you'll see that the holes that are in the inner circle, inner compartment at the top, you can just see them there. 0.85 litres, that fills up the inside as well. So if you're wondering, is it just the inside, is it just the outside? Well, it's all of it, and it fills on its own. So just to round up for today's work, I've got pretty much everything done that I wanted to get done. So I've put the air filter on with the oil, I've put the engine oil in, I've done the front axle oil, I've done the grease, the one-shot grease on the swivel hubs, I've put the oil in the gearbox, in the transfer case and the fairy overdrive. So it is 2.5 litres in the transfer case, 0.4 of a litre in the fairy overdrive, and what is it now? 1.5 I think in the, or 1.6, I'll have to check, put it in the notes. 1.5 or 1.6 litres in the gearbox. I've also done the differentials, which are 1.7 litres. So, and I put the petrol in there like I said. So the only pain in the arse that I've still got is this cross member issue. I've fitted the third one that Richard Chassis have sent me, and while it's a little bit better, I realise now what the issue is. You can see this here. There is a distance. This is right over to the edge, and the holding points, the fixing points to this cross member are different on each side from this fixed cross member. So from here, they're 232 millimeters. And on this side, which appears to be correct because they sit perfectly, are 200 from this cross member here to here, to the tab, to the beginning of the tab that holds the cross member is 243. So there's almost 10 millimeters difference in that fixing point, which is what throws that off, and I'm not happy about that at all. So anyway, there we are. That's how I've got on today. It's been very slow work, but I'm happy to have got all the lubricants in, and I've turned over the engine. I put the entire chassis up on axle stands today and turned the engine with it in gear. Tested four-wheel drive, tested two-wheel drive, tested the overdrive, tested reverse, and all of the wheels do what they're supposed to do, so I'm quite pleased with that. I had to take off the exhaust again to be able to get to this mount here, so that's why that is over there in a corner at the moment, which I shall leave until next weekend. But otherwise, this thing here, which I actually found in the other shed, is perfect. That is exactly what you need when you are filling up any of the levels in this car, because it's got, I don't know if you can see that, but it's got measurements on the side and a flexible hose here. I messed about with various other ways to try and get the oil into the axles and stuff, and it was a bit of a nightmare. So it always pays to get the right piece of equipment. So there we are. That's where we got to today. Okay, so I'm going to put some petrol in, which is the first time in a very long time. But as I say, just to stop the tank from rusting on the inside. I'm hoping it's not going to leak. which it isn't yet, which is a good sign. I've cleaned out and refurbished the original fuel pump and the filter, but I'm probably going to have to put a secondary filter in just before the carburettor. I see that's what a lot of people do, and I think for this first run, well, whenever the first run is, whenever I start the engine first, that I'll have to get it done before then, because I'm sure even having cleaned the inside of this tank, there's probably quite a bit of rust in there as it is. So there we are, that's that. That's 5 litres of fuel in there. I think it takes about 40 to fill it, but yeah. So today I'm going to have a visitor. I'm having a visit from Richard Chassis because there's another, I showed in another video that there's it looks like the bolt-up cross member is, the brackets that hold it to the chassis are welded at different distances from the forward bulkhead, i.e. this one here, than each other. So it sort of kicks the bulkhead forward a bit, which is, I think, what's stopping the gearbox from fitting properly. So they're coming at about midday, so I'll do a little video after that just to see how we got on. But I hope we can sort it out. I mean, I hope they don't have to take the chassis away and re-weld it. They've already offered me a new chassis, which I was like, I don't really want a new one because I've obviously got really far and I've painted it, which cost a lot of money and took a lot of time and all of those things. So we'll see what comes out of it. But otherwise today, I wasn't really anticipating being here today, so I haven't planned what I'm going to do. It's a funny thing when you're doing jobs like this or a project like this, because there are obviously tons of things to do. Everywhere you look, there's a project to be done or something to be done. But actually, in my mind, if you don't sort of plan it, it's difficult to sort of get started. And it's cold and it's raining. But anyway, there we are. So I thought today I will start by just straightening out this bumper and getting that to fit. So that's a small job that needs doing. I filled up all of the fluids last weekend, which was good, and I've come back today, and although there's some old, I mean, it looks like there's loads of leaks, but those are all old leaks. There's nothing new, so nothing's come out. The rear differential is pretty dark. The rear differential looked like it had some oil on it, but I've cleaned it off and I'll look for another leak. That was the differential that I welded the pan onto, that oil pan. So we'll see. I'll just have to monitor it and see if anything comes out of it. But otherwise, I'm just going to do some small jobs today. I mean, this is just an idea. You know, the heater matrix, the brake housing, the brake cylinder housing, all of those things need doing and cleaning up and things like that. But yeah, I've got to rebuild the steering box, which will go on the end of the steering column there. I've got to put on the handbrake assembly. There's loads of things I can do, but obviously if they have to take the chassis away, then it's a bit of a pain in the arse, because then I have to start over again. But there we are, so we'll just see. I'll let you know how we get on later today. Right, so I just had a visit from Corin and Alistair Richards from Richard Chassis, which was great. They're really nice people. They spent a couple of hours here, believe it or not, in this freezing workshop on a very rainy day. But they did a lot of checks and measurements on the chassis and admit that there is an issue with the fixing points of the removable cross member. And whereas I initially thought that this side was the issue, they're actually saying that that side's the issue. But what we did was we loosened the bolts on the bracket and then jacked up the whole engine and gearbox, really just to see what would happen to the mounts when there was no weight on them. And he said if there's an issue, then the whole gearbox will shift, or they'll spring out, out of the, they'll just spring back when you take the bolts out of the holes. But they didn't. They basically just lifted, and there was play in all 4 of the bolts 2 in this side, 2 in that side, which said, he said, I'm right, it's not ideal, it doesn't look fantastic, but because there's no, because there was, there was no tension in those bolts when there was no weight on it, he said it's fine. And he checked the other dimensions. He said everything lines up as it should. It's not ideal, but it's not causing an issue. He also checked a number of other pinch points on the chassis which he knows about, which he said I'll probably find out about. And he says I've got one of the later chassis. This is the one that they make now, although I've had it for 2 years. He said this is the one that they have had the least amount of issues with, because they've changed them over the years. Apparently he's been making them since 1984 or 1981 or something. So lovely people, and very helpful, and they said carry on. The only thing he did mention is that I've cable tied down my brake cables or brake lines, and he said you absolutely have to screw them down with the original screw holders, because when the car vibrates, if they're not screwed down, they wear a hole in them. So I'm definitely going to do that. He also gave me a few other tips, but on the whole, it was. I'm relieved and he's relieved, because otherwise they'd have to cart it back off up north, strip it down, cut the brackets off, re-weld them, and re-galvanise it. No, it would have been a disaster. So it's not ideal, it's not perfect, but it's not playing any issue with the geometry and the setup. So I'm relieved, happy, and I'm going to carry on. Right, so I've just finished the handbrake and tightened up the engine mounts and the gearbox mounts and everything. But the handbrake is brilliant. So I've actually got to get these 2 connectors here. I haven't got the spring on yet because I haven't got an 18mm spanner, ring spanner, to get that bracket off, because underneath I've got it hanging there. Underneath there's a little tab there, which is tightened up facing down, which is incorrect. It needs to be facing up, I think. But at least, anyway, when I do that, when I've got that spanner, I'll move it up, and then I'll connect the other side of the spring, other end of the spring, to that. I don't know if that's supposed to be loose. Maybe it is, maybe it isn't. Maybe it's supposed to move with the handbrake. I'll leave it loose anyway, it all seems to be okay. But anyway, I'll attach that once I've done it, but I've got to get the original or replacement screw for that. It's on a little spring, and this one as well, so they're not original. But other than that, this handbrake is absolutely solid. So that's off, that's on. I've done some adjustments here. I think I need another one of those nuts up there. But anyway, if you just have a look. Hang on. Make sure that's out. And if I just rock it like that, absolutely solid. So I'm pleased with that. Another job done.